Morning! Is it still morning? Yes, it's still morning. Bit of a late start today because I didn't turn the reverse osmosis on until 7 o'clock, and it seems to be taking forever to get me 48 litre in the HLT. Today, the Americans are voting. Sadly not for the greatest Prime Minister, the greatest President, the greatest POTUS they may never have had in a time of crisis, Mr. Bernie Sanders. Boys and girls, I introduce to you Bernie's Brew. I was going to call it something else, and someone told me I probably shouldn't do because the meaning was slightly different in America as it is in the UK. So this is Bernie's Brew on the election day in America. The date for future reference is the 3rd of November 2020. What a fucking year this has been. Likely to get worse if Trump's re-elected. Anyway, let's not do any politics right now, apart from this is for Bernie Sanders. The malt bill, I'm going to go half and half. Maris Otter, Golden Promise. They got slightly different EBCs. I'm going to chuck 540 of oats, 530 of carapils, 450 of wheat malt, and couple of 100 grams of rice hulls in there, just because there's a lot of sort of like potential in there for a stuck mash. It's just gone 12, and it's taken a while for the reverse osmosis to be reversed osmosis, but the temperature's nearly up where it needs to be. I'm just going to add the AMS and a little bit of calcium chloride, I think it was, and then we'll be ready to get us mashed in. That's quite a large grain bill. It's 14 litres. Let's see where we go. I'll put an extra litre in. Wasn't happy with the actual stodge. It almost turned into a brick of porridge, so chucked an extra litre in. I'm not going to adjust the AMS, so there was 7 ml of AMS, then 4 grams of calcium chloride and half a gram of gypsum. Right, now the good thing was, because I added an extra litre, the temperature isn't quite as bad as I was fearing. It's 64.5, so I'm going to start it recircing, make sure I've got all of these connectors connected and properly, because you know what I'm like. Right, so oops, no, that needs to be on auto. So we're going to start the recirc, take this up to 66.5, which will hover it around 67, because I don't know, I still haven't quite got the thing right. Here we go. Good, starting to recirc. Now obviously there is a PT100 probe in there, but that's only measuring the temperature here. So we'll have a hot spot here and a cold spot over here. So I'm going to spend a few minutes just giving it a little bit of a stir. And this is why people there's always these conversations going on about what you should use as a mash paddle, and I've got this nice stainless steel one, but this is in an old keg which came out of a canal. If I had, I think, one of those nice beautiful shiny SS Brewtech 20-gallon mash tuns, it's likely that I would go for a wooden one. Right, I'm going to let that go for a few minutes. Actually, it feels just feel still. Right, I'm going to do this with 2 hands now, and I'll be back when we're mashing in proper. This is, as I've previously mentioned, the first time I will be using one of these Firmzilla all-rounders. It's pretty much the same as my other Firmzilla, but it doesn't have that collection jar and butterfly valve on the bottom, which is a pain to clean. And I don't need it for this brew, so it's not going to be a massive issue. One of the other things I forgot to mention was this recipe, as I calculated it, required 200 grams of rice hulls. Didn't have 200 grams of rice hulls, so I ended up using oat husks instead. And I think pretty much, you know, they're the same. I think what they do is they increase the mash porosity in some way, so you've got less chance of having a stuck mash. So we're mashed in. We've been going now for 15 minutes ish. We are sort of around the right temperature, so that's okay, that's good enough. This bobs around a little bit because obviously, you know, that's only measuring, as I said before, in one area. So overall in there, I reckon we're probably somewhere around 66, 67 on a reasonably continual basis. And it goes through the Herms, which is at the moment, we're at 74 in the HLT. Just a quick shout out, anybody out there who knows where they can get 100 litre stainless steel kegs, not casks, not firkins, kegs, 100 litre kegs. Please let me know, happy to pay for them. If you know of a brewery that doesn't use them anymore, can you ask the brewery to contact me or give me the brewery's details? If you know of anywhere else where there are 100 litre ones up for sale, legitimately please, then please let me know. Just for the record, we have a mash pH of 5.2. This is temperature compensated, so spot bloody on. Get in. Thank you very much. All down to Delilah, she's giving me luck today. Ooh. Believe it or not, there's a very, very slow transfer going on there. And I had to make some room on the floor because I keep tripping over everything. Oh, health and safety, health and safety. So we have now a very gentle transfer going. I have added a little bit of pump because that's a big grain bed. Worried about a stuck mash, so I've throttled it right the way back so it's not sucking on the grain. Any other time, a little bit of sucking, you know, bring it on, but not on such a tight grain bed. I need to take this off, in ready to pop a little sparge arm on. I think it's probably about ready now for a sparge. I know this is the bit that people like. Flushing out the Herms. Nice and gently. And there we have our clean water. Well, from the HLT. Now, a nice, gentle sparge at 79 degrees. And again, I'm going to throttle this on the pump. The thing with these pumps, these are magneto pumps, so they're controlled by a magnet spinning the impeller around. Thank you. You can be quiet now. They shouldn't be run dry, so the way that you throttle them is on the output of the pump, not the input. The input goes into the middle, the output comes out of the outside. So this is how I'm now throttling it. And we'll keep that at a nice gentle throttle literally that much. And this will be now, in fact, I'm going to let it just drop a little bit. This will be about a 30-minute sparge. Oh yeah. A short while later, giving it another little bit of a blast, and then drop it down to a trickle. Now something, it's ongoing, I should say. There's something posted recently, and I've looked into it, and it is a bit of an ongoing thing about hot side oxidation, and people claiming that you don't want any hot side oxidation, apart from the only oxidation you want is when you're putting it into the fermenter. And I can't find any evidence, proper evaluated, proven, researched, peer reviewed, empirical evidence that that is the case. So, and I don't know, and some people are so cocksure of it. You know, they are, you know, vehemently assertive to the point of sometimes being complete arseholes that you mustn't have any hot side aeration. And I said, well, what about sparging and sparge arms and stuff? And I said, oh yeah, well they do serious water treatment to deoxidize the water. So I asked a couple of brewers and they said it's bollocks. Anyway, so that's the reality of whether or not we should have hop side aeration, because I am not an expert. I'm always constantly and beautifully aware that I am not an expert, and I like it that way. Back soon. Now here's a new experiment in the brew. You can't really see how gloopy this is, and I know it looks like, kind of looks like donkey spunk. Remember, all my brews are vegan, and so we never have donkey spunk. And it does look. Anyway, for those who haven't just switched off, that's an anti-foaming. Oh, hang on, let's turn it around. Anti-foam, and you've got to mix it up. When I started pouring it in there, I'm not going to bother telling you what it looked like, but you know what I mean. I've changed this recipe a couple of bits as well. Right, so that is now mixed up. There's 3 millilitres in there, 1 milliliter per 10 litres. I'm starting with a 30, well, it's going to be about 31 litre boilie. 32, all right. Fair enough. That's right, that'll easily boil down. So what this does, this monkey spunk, is it just stops the great big foaming boil overs that I'm sort of almost nearly notorious for. I need to take a bit of this out. I should have done this before I put the monkey spunk in. Bugger. Oh well, never mind. And the reason is I need to take a pre-boil gravity reading. You can go there. You can fuck off. You can go and sit in there. That will cool down at its leisure. I'm going to pop some more ice in there in a minute. And then this is up to sort of 80 degrees already, so we're nearly at the start of the boil, which is good. That was a 30-minute sparge, believe it or not. Crumbs. Now, I've got a great big stirry thing somewhere. You know what they called spoon, but fucked if I know where it is. So that's been in there with sodium bicarbonate. Give it a quick rinse in reverse osmosis water, and just give this a bit of a stir around. Now, it doesn't matter, it's going to boil anyway, isn't it? That's what people always say about, you know, you do all the sanitisation on this side and then you're going to boil it anyway. Well, yeah, that's because you can't be overly careful when it comes to sanitation. I'm sorry. Well, no, I'm not sorry. it's a habit of a lifetime, and it doesn't matter whether that's going to be boiled or not. It's the quality of what goes into there. There's this old thing, CISO, shit in, shit out. So keep everything as pure as our little Delilah there, darling. All right, darling. Keep everything that pure. Not quite that pure. She's never been touched. Right, coming up to the boil. First hop addition. At 60 minutes, I was going to put Columbus in. That's 15.5 alpha acids. I'm actually going to put Brew 1 in. That's 15.7 alpha acids. Only 5 grams, but that's enough. You know, that's all right. We don't need to be, we don't need to be, do we? And because it's only 5 grams, I don't mind using expensive hops any other time, because you're not really getting any flavour out of them. You're just getting bittering. Any other time, I'd say, fucking what a waste. But that's that. That is now. I've already weighed it out, so they're going in. We're nearly up to a boil. Look, about 15 degrees off. Oh, this is where we start to get that incredible smell, and I'm going to start turning the fan on over there. What I am going to do in the fullness of time, with our upside downy lids that go on the top, is put a hose on there as an extractification, so that I can still brew inside in winter without causing too much condensation up there. Oh yes, I forgot to mention, this is our little COVID stress ball, which I can't do really with one hand, but it's one of those you squeeze it and it all. So, because I don't know if you remember, I did have a light hanging from there and I kept banging my fucking head on it. So the light's gone, so I've put a little COVID ball up here for me to bang my head on instead. Bit superfluous, I might edit that out. This is not material to the brew. Okay, coming up, as soon as that's bubbly, in with the hops, and then I'm going to set that. It's definitely going to be an hour's brew, that, because I've overshot. 31 I usually go for, but that's okay. I'm going to set it down to a little simmery brew. Oh, now that reminds me, just in case. Come on. Stop. Why don't you look at what you're doing rather than looking through the camera lens? Then you'll be able to see your hand. This is my little Heath Robinson cap. I was just going to cap. I got a blanking plate. I was just going to cap that off, but I thought, sod it. That will do just as well. Just in case it does boil up a little bit too much through the oil in there. I don't think it will, but it's just a precaution so it doesn't then sort of like drip all over everything. I've just star sanded the plate chiller, so we'll let all that drain out. Then I've got some other caps to go on there. Come on, get a bob on. Just double check. Yes, we are at 100. I've managed to put that on manual and then drop it down to 18. I don't know why or how, but I've put it back where it should be now. No point having a PID if you set it manually. Alright. Oh, the fish are gonna love that. Right, back when we're ready to do the first hops. We have a boil. That's just filling the HLT for a clean down. When we is done, look at that, 5 grams, a 5 gram hop addition, Brew 1 going in. That's our boil started. 97.6. Pop that onto one element now, and that will just bubble away beautifully. Look at that, none of that great big woofed off. That's the anti-foam, perfect. None of that shit, none of that kind of, I don't know what they call it. I don't think it is beer stone. That's really what you get inside. That's a calcification that you get inside fermenters and that. I think it's something else. Like, yeah, anyway. Right, so that's good. That's now going. We can get that going for, we've got 45 minutes of that, and then we're going to stick in half a kilo of maltodextrin, a quarter of a proto-flock, and then give it the last 15 minutes. Goody gumdrops. Right, we are there. That's it. Oops. We have, thank you, we have reached FO, the moment of flame out, and that smells just divine. Now, my secret weapon, it's not really that secret, and it isn't really a weapon. It's a bag with a big block of ice in it, and what I'm going to do, just very briefly, just bong it in there. It won't need to be in there long, and we shall watch the, I was going to say watch the price come down. We can watch the price come down, or we could just watch the temperature come down, which it will do. It's not doing it right much at the moment, but it will do. I'll give it a little bit of a whiz. Try and do it without splashing. Now what I actually want to do is just pause this a second so that the camera unsteams. Oh, 5 minutes, bang, that's 5 minutes, bang on. 5 minutes is taking it, or well, it'll be, by the time that's at 8 it'll be 5.5 probably, not in my luck. What I did was I took this out and I double bagged it, because I didn't know, when you put ice in a bag, sometimes it kind of like expands. Well, it always expands. And just in case the original bag was compromised in any way, I've then put it into a second bag before then putting it in there, and I've drained it out a couple of times. Just being extra cautious like, and I've put my recirculatory arm on, and now it's time for FO. It's not really, it's below FO, it's 80 degree hops. Just double check, 79. Missed it, got a bit too cold. So first lot, oh, this is where the smell really, like the other day over in Retford at Harry Brew 69's place, that moment when you chuck those hops in, just like that aroma hit, it's just absolutely bonkers. I'm going to give this a tiny little stir. Now, kind of those hops swell up massively, as we have previously ascertained. I'm going to pop a lid on. Where's my lids? Oh, here are. Just to try and keep a little bit of temperature in there, right? And then start my recirculatory. And I'll just show you what that's doing. Should have waited, put the lid on afterwards. All that's doing is circulating into the hop spider so that the oils are then pushed out. If you watch the video that I did at Chris's, as soon as he put the coconut in, you could see the oils then coming out, because that hop spider in there is kind of like a self-contained container. A self-contained container, I know what I mean. And it then kind of like doesn't have an equal dissipation of the oils. So this recirculatory systemios is exactly, oh, get on there, thank you, exactly what we need. So now we've got 30 minutes of that. Brilliant. I've really had to throttle back the recirc because, as you can see, we kind of had a little bit of an overflow. This is because this here now is filtering so well that it doesn't really want to let the water out that quickly. That's the problem with this type of hop spider. The mesh is just too kind of fine, but it's a balancing act between, we want to let the wort through, but we don't want to let the hop particles through. So I've had to throttle it right back. We are now getting a kind of flow coming out of, you can't really see, No, you can't. But the level here is higher than the level inside, so it is gently kind of like filtering through. This is why I wanted the recirculation. This is to get the last little tiny bit of aroma and flavour, because these aren't bittering hops now, these are purely for flavour and aroma, to get the last of those flavours and oils and all the hoppy goodness out. And as you can see, it's creeping up to the edge again. So I think I'm just going to have to do this in stages. So you see, I've turned the pump off and it is now gradually dropping. So I'm going to do it in stages. And I did wonder whether or not I should just keep boosting the temperature up to 80. But I thought, no, do you know what? It's not falling massively quickly. It will fall quicker as a result of the recirc. So I can, if I need to, I can always just boost it a tiny little bit. But I don't think that's really necessary at the moment. While I'm waiting for that to finish its steeping, I've kegged the digital IPA, and this is the one that I ended up having to use real hops in because I couldn't find any Pacific Jade pellets. So anyway, kegged that. So it's weighed in at 23.55, 23.55 kilos. I know that keg because all Kegland cornies weigh 4.2, so that's 19.35. Is it 19? Hang on, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, 19.35. Sometimes I don't trust my ability to count, you know. So just over 19. That's good. Happy am I with that. So now what I've done is I've pressurised it up to 30, burped it a couple of times. This is now just going to go sit in the fridge upstairs, and then I think by the time I've done that and had a coffee, there'll be time to get that lot over there in the keg. We are done. So what I've now done is, from this side tube I have added a small tube with the filter in it. It's then going into the pump, out of the pump, into the plate chiller where I've throttled it right back before it comes out of plate chiller and goes into Firmzilla all-rounder. And this has been preloaded with the float hydrometer. And it's currently going in at 13.9 degrees. Actually, wow. So if I speed up the flow a little bit, we'll see that start to rise. Thank you. There we go. And that's because the flow is now going through here quicker, so it's not having as much chance to cool it down. So the slower it goes through, the more heat the cold water takes away. There's a series of plates. We've got cold water washing that way and then the hot water washing that way, and so it's a heat exchanger in exactly the same way as heat exchangers work. You just said that. 14.5 going into there. I'd rather have it cooler than warmer, if that makes sense, because the yeast is coming out of a fridge. Actually, I'd need to take the yeast out of the fridge, let it warm up a little bit. So this, if it was too warm and you chuck the yeast in, hurts the yeast, in fact can kill the yeast. 13.8, that is still, do you know, that's on the low side. So if I speed that through a little bit, that will crank the heat up a tad. There's two ways of doing that. I could either restrict the flow of water or restrict the flow of water. It would probably be more economical to restrict the flow of water. So that then now, oh, right, there we go, open that, restrict the water, and that should start creeping up. Good, good. Right, we're still going quite slow on this. There's no prizes for rushing. We'll see how we go. I'm reckoning probably get 21, possibly 21 litres. We'll see. But that is now going through at 20.1, so I am going to restrict it a little bit more. We don't want to run the risk of it overcooking. That's good, you can see where that's lovely. Let's drop now to 20. This is measuring here. This is a PT 100 that drops down into here. So it's measuring the temperature of the wort when it comes out of the plate chiller. So that's all right, I'm just going to leave it going like that. The most common question I'm asked is, why have I gone to the trouble of building all this? Building the control panel with all the gubbins inside, using essentially hazardous waste pulled out of the canal, which is what they're classed as. They're not hazardous and they're not really waste, but the way the legal system works and international maritime law, I think that pump's now nearly sucked everything out of there. How are we doing in here? Right, I'm going to give that, I'm going to let the pump off for a minute, and I'm just going to let the remains of that filter its way through. Yeah, so why do I go to the bother of making all this and going through all this single process? Well, two reasons. One, I like fettling. I like being in that kind of like control position of being able to choose which taps I open and when, and you know what I mean, and having a hands-on approach to each of the separate parts of this process. And also it makes it more fun if I have a brew day, and the idea, part of the idea eventually when COVID's done one, is to be able to offer this as an activity for patients, and I will pay for that by offering it as a paid activity for people who want to come and pay to do it. So, you know, a brew day where you get to walk off with some of your own beer eventually pays for a patient to have an escape for a day. And whether it's doing this, you know, the thing about this also is it's not necessarily just about patients. It's also about offering something to people who just perhaps need to have a chat. There's lots of downtime with this. While you're mashing in, you've got an hour. While you're coming up to the boil, doing the boil, you've got another hour at least. That's time when you can talk. And that's something that, it's not a paid counselling session, it's just an opportunity to talk. This is, as I've said in one of the previous videos, if you, depending on when you're watching this, again it's the 3rd of November. November is Men's Mental Health Month. It's vitally important that we get a grip on this now, because this is the worst time ever when we need to get a grip on it. Right, men's mental health has always been an issue, but it's a greater issue now because of COVID and all the other factors that feed into masculinity and being a man, and stiff upper lip and not moaning, you know, oh, be right. So this now offers a 5-hour window of opportunity where people can just offload their shit. And guys don't do it. We don't do it. Girls don't a lot of the time, although girls will talk to each other. Women, I should say, instead of girls. I say boys and girls. You don't mind, do you? I hope the women don't like that. They don't mind me sort of, you know, saying girls, because it's girls and boys. There was an experiment, I've mentioned this before I think, called the waiting room experiment, where it was a fake, you know, you're waiting for interview or something, or and they put a group of men in a room and a group of women in a room, and within 5 minutes all the women were chatting to each other about their holidays, kids, etc., handbags, I don't know, sorry, you know what I mean, but all through the entire process for the 20 minutes in the men's waiting room where all the guys were sort of staring at the ceiling or twiddling their thumbs, not talking to each other, avoiding eye contact. So that's kind of like, women do have more of an opportunity in a sense, but not always to offload. But this is kind of like for boys and girls, really, to have an opportunity to escape. That's why I kind of like this. I've thought about the all-in-one. In fact, there's a guy on one of the Facebook groups, Graham Preston, I think his name is. His YouTube thing is hapless something or other. In fact, he's far from hapless. He's very competent. But he's one of the few people who actually competes with me for swearing in some videos. There you go. A new fact every day, boys and girls. And he's just bought an all-in-one system, which from the floor up to here is sort of like, about this. And then the grain basket pulls out and it'll be up here. In fact, he needs somewhere like this where he can put a block and tackle. I'm sure that's not a very good block and tackle. He'd need a bigger one than that to hoist the grain thing out if he's doing a 20-gallon sort of thing. So yeah, I could have one of those in here, but for me, you get a perfect brew out of them. For me, this is the system that works for me, hand on. Anyway, God, you done half rattle on, Bailey. Finish doing that. Get it in fucking fridge. God, what are you like? The yeast is pitched. Cheers, Bernie. Bernie's brew. I don't know. I can't remember. Oh, crikey, that's bloody heavy, is that? It's 23 kilos in there. The lid is on, and I've sort of plastered it in silicone grease, that stuff. And then I'm going to plaster the retaining thing on here that holds the top on. It's just like the other Firmzilla's, which is currently sat in star sand. Doesn't really need to be, but I'm going to slather silicone grease all around that thread in a second when I've got two hands, which I haven't at the moment. I've set the spunding valve to 10. It's all in, all set. I've got my temperature probe on, and I'm going to ferment this one either at 20 or 21, can't remember what I said, 20 I think. That's it. Leave it in there now for, I don't know, it's probably going to be a week and a bit. Let's just have a little look at what was the digital IPA. And this is what you get using like real hops. This was the Southern Cross, which I couldn't get. Was it the Southern Cross or the Pacific Pearl? One of them, anyway, I couldn't get in pellet, so I had to go for leaf. And it's a bit big and massive, and I'm not sure quite what to do with that. It might be a case of composting that. That's probably about it then for today. It's been a good day. It's been 6 hours, and now is that bit that everybody really enjoys, which is the cleaning down. So that's foot fish, that's foot drain. Give floor a good mop. That's the other thing. People always ask, what's your most used bit of equipment? That's the most used bit of equipment. The manky old floor mop. And the kettle, obviously. Not that one. Right, that has been Bernie's Brew, Bernie's Special. The greatest POTUS that was never elected. Would have been nice, wouldn't it? I mean, they said, oh, he's a socialist. Is he? Fuck. He's American. They don't know what socialism is over there. Now, all my American friends are going to start sending me flame mail. But you know. Right, that's it for today, boys and girls. Hope you've enjoyed this, and yeah, back for the tasting, I guess. Well, all in, that was 6 hours from, well, after the reverse osmosis had reversed osmosified. So I started off 48 litres. Yeah, good brew day, enjoyed that. So we're going to call it 6 hours actually. Bit more clearing up to do, but yeah, I've earned this. Doesn't that look the business? Unfortunately, I've got to fess up. Sorry. I've got kind of like a rule that I'm trying to live to at the moment of not starting to drink until 7 o'clock at night. But I was so thirsty, I thought I'll have a little birdies. That's it. I hope you've enjoyed that. I know I whipple on sort of like ad nausea all the time. I just can't stop. I don't know what it is. Can't stop myself. Sorry. If you have enjoyed it, please click the like thing, thumbs up thing, because it makes me feel loved. And if you would like to subscribe, it'd be lovely to have you. And if you click the little bell on the little vibraty bell thing, it tells you whenever I've posted something silly again. Other people just get away with having a life. Anyway, that's it. Bernie's Brew. I'm not going to call it anything other. I've been through about 8 different names. It's Bernie's, and within the next week or so, we will find out who the next president of the United States will be. Just in time, probably, for me to drink the entire 40 pints of Bernie's in one weekend and try and forget if it happens to be Donald Trump who's re-elected. Not that I'm politically minded or anything like that. That's it. Cheers, boys and girls.